Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Gyanatmirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurumilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhakti Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Vani Pracharani Nirvishesha Srimati Paschati Deshadharini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Yeah. It's Kapila assuring Kardama the welfare and spiritual progress of Devahuti. He brightly colored birds, I think we start from there. Brightly colored birds flew from tree to tree in the clear morning sky, their song mixing with the croaking of frogs in the lake. A pair of musk deer drinking at the lake looked curiously at Vidura and Maitreya, sat nearby, absorbed in their discussion. Vidura asked the sages what Kardama did next. Maitreya said, Sage Kardama accepted the vow of silence in order to think always of Krishna and take shelter of him exclusively. He traveled alone across the globe, never again utilizing fire, either for sacrifice, warmth, or cooking. Nor did he again sleep in a dwelling. He fixed his mind on the personal feature of the Supersoul, from whom the material cosmos emanates, but who has no material attributes. The Supersoul can only be perceived by unfailing devotional service. Kardama gradually became free from false ego and worldly affection. Undisturbed, equal to all, and without duality, he realized his true spiritual identity. His mind turned inward. He was perfectly calm, like a windless sea. He became liberated from conditioned life, fully satisfied by rendering transcendental devotional service to Lord Vasudeva, the omniscient Supersoul. Kardama saw how Krishna resides in everyone's heart as Kshirodakshayi Vishnu, and simultaneously how everything rests on Krishna's transcendental body as Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. Attaining this vision by the discharge of pure devotional service, he became equal to everyone, free from hatred and desire. Ultimately, he turned to the Lord's spiritual kingdom. Wow. Back to Godhead, huh?
Yes.
Kardama Muni ki jai. This point I was thinking how the wife helps the man perform his duties, fulfill his purposes. Without Devahuti, Kardama would not have been able to do his purposes. It's not only going back to God that's important. It's also the journey that matters and what we need to accomplish in the journey. Without Kardama, there would not be all those 9 daughters. The universe would not get populated. Kapila would not come. So everybody has a purpose, significant purpose. So let us pray today. At the lotus feet of Shri Shri Radha Madhava, Shri Shri Nrsingadev, Shri Shri Panchatattva, to help us fulfill our purpose in life.
Jai.
Would you like to read a little bit, Mataji, chapter 25?
Okay. Chapter 25. The glories of devotional service. Kapila begins to deliver his instructions to Devahuti on Sankhya philosophy and devotional service. Although the sun had dropped behind the western hills, the air remained warm. The Naimisharanya sages spoke animatedly to one another, marveling at Kardama's character. After leading an exemplary household life and making provision for his devoted wife, he renounced his family to set the right example for others. Eager to hear more from Sutta, the assembly gradually quietened. Shaunaka said, I understand that the Kapila is the unborn supreme person. His body is spiritual and he incarnated to disseminate the transcendental knowledge for the benefit of humanity. Sutta nodded. Yes, that is correct. Shaunaka folded his palms. Dear Sutta, to hear the Lord's instructions in the senses, real pleasure. He knows all the Vedas and is the most accomplished yogi. No one knows more than him. Kindly therefore narrate Lord Kapila's activities, which are fully spiritual. A roar of approval arose from the assembled sages. Sutta said, just as you are asking me. Similarly, Vidura asked Maitreya, his father's intimate friend. Listen now to his reply. Chattering loudly, black clouds chased each other among the branches of the Ashwavata tree, under which Maitreya and Vidura sat. Streaks of black and yellow flashed in and out of the foliage. Oblivious to this aerial display, Vidura said, what did Kapila do after Kadama left? Maitreya said, Kapila remained behind to console his aggrieved mother. I shall relate what happened next. It was a week since Kadama's departure, 7 days in which Devahuti wept ceaselessly, unable to sleep or eat. She had always known her husband would one day renounce family life, but now he was gone and she was in shock. She had served him faithfully for many years, captivated by his kindness and saintly character. Now she lay disheveled on the floor of her palatial mansion, her dark locks falling in a knotted, tangle down her back, her beautiful face lined with grief, and her reddened eyes looking out from dark hollows. She remembered the first day she had failed to find him in any of his usual meditation spots. She had run in a panic through the woods and down the Ganges banks calling his name. Hearing her frantic calls, her son Kapila had come, gently calming her. He confirmed her worst fear. Kadama was gone. Over the course of the next few days, Devahuti sent messengers to her relatives asking if she may visit them. She wanted to get away from her mansion where everything reminded her of Kardama. However, they all declined. Her brother Utanpad replied that he was facing a crisis. It was not a good time for her to visit. His son Dhruva had run away from home at the tender age of 5. Devahuti's younger sister, Prasuti, similarly replied that her family was in the throes of catastrophe. Her husband Daksh envied his son-in-law, Shiva. He had publicizedly insulted him, resulting in a confrontation between Daksha and Shiva's followers. Shiva had abruptly left in order to avoid an escalation of the dispute. Prasuti feared that the situation would get worse. This was not safe time for Devahuti to come. The messengers had been unable to locate Devahuti's eldest brother, Priyavrata. Some believed he had adopted the life of her older sister Akuti had just given birth to her second child. As the news came in, Devahuti was shocked. Utanpad and Prasuti had seemed to have perfect lives. They were religious, successful, happily married, and widely respected. How was it that they were enduring such difficulties? Tears trickled down her cheek. Her maidservant, Medha, offered her a soft cloth to wipe her face. Devahuti smiled tearfully. Oh, Medha, what shall I do? Another, to her intimate servants, Shama said, My lady, we must find your husband. He cannot have gone far. When he hears how you are suffering, he will surely return. Devahuti stroked Shama's cheek. You are so kind and gentle, Shama. I would like nothing more than to be with my husband again. But that time has passed. He will not return, nor could I possibly ask him. He has gone to achieve spiritual perfection. A third servant, Ragini, tried to lighten her mood. Cheer up, mistress. You still have us, and we can pretend to be your good husband. She put on a grave look and sat down in mock meditation, her eyes closed, and her two hands held out in the Jnana Mudra. The other maidservants laughed. Ragini opened her eyes, and her pretty face broke into a smile that turned into a concerned frown when she saw Devahuti's tearful features. Medha put a comforting arm around Devahuti's shoulder. Mistress, surely you will recall your Lord Brahma's prophecy. Devahuti checked her tears and brushed her hair away from her face. You mean that my son Kapila would instruct me in spiritual science? Yes, exactly. I think the time for that has come. Only he can give you relief. You are right, Medha. But where is he now? We saw him by the lake, seated in meditation. I will show you. Devahuti took a deep breath. This was surely her only hope. Very well. Let us leave at once. Medha took Devahuti's hand and helped her rise. Leading her mistress away, she called out to the other Gandharva girls, Make preparation. Our lady will take breakfast on the bank of Bindu Sarovara, surrounded by her three closet companions. Devahuti hurried to the lake. Numerous other maidens followed behind, carrying seats, canopies, and other paraphernalia. In the early morning light, Devhuti found her son seated in meditation under a yellow blossomed champaka tree. Her companions announced her presence, quickly arranging a seat and a canopy for her. His meditation broken, Kapila opened his eyes to see his tearful mother standing breathless before him. Rising quickly, he touched her feet and asked how he might serve her. Devahuti said, My dear Lord, I am disgusted with my senses, demanding gratification. They have cast me into an abyss of suffering. You are my only means of salvation, my transcendental guide. By your mercy, I have attained your association after countless births. She knelt before him. I know you are the Supreme Person, the origin of everything, and the Lord of all beings. Like the sun, you have come to dispel the darkness of ignorance in the universe. Kindly dispel my delusional identification with this body and its relations. Her face streaming with tears, she looked pleadingly at her son. I take refuge at your lotus feet because you are the only person capable of giving shelter. You are the axe which can cut down the tree of material existence. I offer you obeisance, for you are the greatest transcendentalist. Kapila knelt beside her, placing his arms around her shoulders. What would you like to know, dear mother? Devahoti had often heard Kadama speak about Prakriti and Purusha, and how misery arose due to their combination. I wish to understand the relationship between Prakriti and Purusha. Why is the living entity forced to suffer in material life? And how can this pain cease? Kapila assisted his mother to her seat. Sitting before her, he said, "As you know, mother, there are various yoga systems with different goals. I will tell you about that yoga which aims at re establishing the soul's eternal relationship with Krishna. This is life's possible goal. Attaining it, one automatically becomes detached from material happiness and distress. Most pious lady, I shall explain to you this ancient yoga system which I formerly taught to the great sages. It is eternally relevant and practical for everyone."
We can pause there for today. This separation of Devahuti is very interesting, very nicely written actually.
Yeah.
How she felt, and she knew it was coming. As we all know, death will come. We will lose people in our life. It will come someday or another. When it happens, we feel like helpless and hopeless, and how she was feeling. Unfortunately for her, she had Kapila, right?
Yes.
That we
And
have.
she's so much in grief at the moment.
Oh yeah, can't explain the grief. Mm, That's why we need Sangha of devotees. We need to cling to the right things, cling to chanting the holy name and cling to the Bhagavatam. So when miseries hit us, where we take shelter,
Absolutely.
wherever we invest our energies, we'll take shelter there. So this whole thing was, I mean, she asked the right question because she wants to understand why there's pain, why there's suffering. When she comes from that culture, right? Some people try to avoid pain, some people try to run away from pain. Some people suppress pain, they don't want to deal with it. Okay, we will continue tomorrow. I feel the pain of Devahuti. And also there is this point how everybody was going through their own thing. King Uttanapad had just lost Dhruva. Dhruva ran away to the forest and they couldn't find him. And then Prasuti had the whole insult of her son-in-law happening by Daksha. No, everybody, sometimes we think that, oh, I'm in problem, but everybody has their own problem. That's the nature of material. That is Prakriti. Whenever Prakriti acts, reacts, gets activated, this kind of troubles, drama, because we're dealing with other individuals, we're dealing with karma, we're dealing with false ego. Not easy.
They were mentioned about Prakriti and Purusha, the combination. How when they are in this combination, what they react to. What is the reaction of that?
Yeah, well, we will hear more about that tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes.
For today, we can see how Bhagavatam can help us to deal with reality, and because material life just tells us, deny it, don't think of death, just keep enjoying. But Bhagavatam tells us, look, everybody has difficulties, everybody's going through things. And even Devahuti was surprised, you see, when she hears that they were going through this. Oh, wow, I thought they were happy. She wanted to run away from her pain. And she wanted to take shelter of her relatives. But then she found out that the relatives are also in great trouble. Then only she came to Kapila, right? So that also shows that when we are in difficulty, when we don't get help, it's also kind of a blessing, because ultimately we'll go to Krishna and Krishna conscious solutions. So, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.